We're loading. Alright, welcome. I'm back, everybody, to another Heroes of Might and Magic 5 Heroes video. Just going over every single faction's heroes, all 8 of them. So please don't forget to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out my entire dual mode series, which is fully done by the time you guys are seeing this, 90-something videos, and all of my final tier lists for Heroes 5 are out as well. And then definitely some olden era content, but also just to go through all of these other heroes from every faction, and we will be doing creatures as well. So again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And let us get started here. I'm just going to call her Miss Beth here. Starting off with a pretty basic army, nothing too crazy or special there. Never any artifacts. So then, much like every single faction, everybody starts with a certain skill. So for a dungeon, it is basic irresistible magic. So partially negates magic protection and allows hero to deal 20% of the normal spell damage to otherwise resistant creatures. So essentially, they just do better spell damage. Then she starts with basic dark as well, so definitely a very big caster hero here. And then she's one of the very few heroes in the entire game that actually starts with 2 specializations. So let us see. Dark Ritual ability is more powerful, enabling the hero to regenerate mana even beyond the normal max cap. Not generated over depends. So yeah, she's definitely massive caster and gets a whole lot of mana for sure. Special Adventure ability hero spends entire day to perform the ritual and regain full mana. Can be used at the beginning of the day. So, if for whatever reason maybe you just got out of a very big fight, whether you did good or bad, but obviously enough to have your hero survive, and you need to do it again, or maybe you're doing the little cheese with the making your assassins or shadow witches invisible and using all your mana. This would be a good day to regen all that mana that you used and then do it all again. She doesn't have any dark abilities or anything like that, but I think she's definitely, honestly, probably middle of the pack. Obviously, I haven't seen every single hero's things just yet. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but as far as Miss Beth here, I think she's probably pretty middle. If you're obviously going for a very magic heavy, she's going to be super strong, being able to have a absolute shit ton of mana, which is great if that's what you're going for. So she can definitely be strong. I do think that both of these are mid, even though they are good. I think it's just I'm not sure how deep it will help you. I think it's pretty specific to where those will actually be insanely useful. So I would put her kind of in the middle. Definitely not a great starting hero either. Then we have Mr. Lethos here. Again, pretty much the same starting army, a little different, but overall the same. No artifacts, still basic, resistible, and dark, so exactly the same thing that we just saw. But Lethos specialization, enemy units may enter the combat already poisoned. So this can definitely be good at any level in the game. I think it's super nice, you go into the fight and you have a good chance, especially depending on his level, to already have these enemies poisoned, which is pretty nice. I mean, it's free damage and kills, coming out just for choosing the hero, let alone, leveling him up. Again, no abilities or anything here, so I think Lethos is solid. I think he's good. Mostly just because, again, this is going to be good at any point of the game. It's only going to get stronger, and there's definitely... I think the worst thing is just facing Necropolis would be the only downside to choosing Lethos. Yeah, I think that that would be really the downside to choosing him. But still, as far as, facing all the neutral creatures around the map, that's a good specialization to have. And anybody else that isn't Necropolis, that's good to, have X amount of units being poisoned and taking damage throughout the fight to start. So I think he's a solid one. I'm not going to say he's the best, but I think he is a solid choice at any point. Yurina here, again, pretty basic army. 9 times out of 10, most of all the heroes have essentially the stock army that most people do, from any faction. And then obviously, usually what's different is when the heroes are um, creature heroes. What I mean by that is we'll see one that's, a Minotaur, Blood Maiden, to where that's pretty much all their starting creatures and nobody else. She does start with a ammo cart, which is nice. I mean, definitely not going to bash that. And then she is our first one that starts with some different things. So she has basic destructive as well, and then also basic attack. So that's a little bit nice to have a lot of starting things. Pretty strong start there for that. And then her specialization, Shadow Witches in general have a chance to make a free additional shot at the hero's current target. Chance increases on depending on hero's level. So for me personally, as I've said in pretty much so many of my Heroes of Might and Magic 5 videos, is Shadow Witches are probably the worst tier 6 in the game. Um, Not great attack, not great defense. Their spells are mid. So this can be nice. And I think honestly Yurina's a pretty decent start. Again, because she starts with so many things like basic attack and basic destructive. To where it gives you a little extra umph in the beginning, and then also the Shadow Witches then become better, which is nice, and that's obviously later in the game, mid to late game, to where these can, definitely get some more damage output out. I do think she still needs a whole lot of help. I wouldn't, I'd put her kind of like high end in the middle still. I would still personally go after Lethos more than her just because Lethos is going to be guaranteed more useful throughout the entire game compared to Yurina, to where she has some usefulness in the beginning just because she starts with a little more skills and stuff, which is going to be nice for her leveling up as well. Um, but the Shadow Witch extra shot is it's okay. I mean, I don't necessarily want that for my hero, and while I really like a lot of dungeon creatures, I'm not a big dungeon player. That's mostly because their creature growth is the worst in the game, so I don't want to deal with that. But dungeon is solid. So this is our first different one. We got some Minotaurs in this group here with Sorgul. No artifacts, basic irresistible magic still, and basic attack with Battle Frenzy this time. Okay, so he's got a little extra here. So minimum maximum damage inflicted by the creature is increased, so that can be nice. But I'm not a huge Battle Frenzy guy, but starts with something, so not the worst thing in the world. And then his specialization is the Raider. So Raider special attack, a lizard bite deals more damage depending on hero's level. So, for those of you that don't know, if a Grim Raider is by an enemy target, and let's just say your Blood Maidens, your Minotaurs, somebody in melee range comes up and hits the target that is next to your Grim Raiders, the enemy target that's right next to your Grim Raiders, the Grim Raiders will then follow up with an additional attack. So it's kind of like, I attack with my Blood Maidens, the Grim Raider's right next to him, so they're going to help me out and attack him with a shot as well. So that just makes that shot even more damaging. So it is nice. I do like Grim Raiders for that reason. It's nice to have just essentially free damage output, and to further increase that is definitely not a bad thing. I don't think it's enough, in my opinion. I don't feel like that is like a huge thing, because even in fights, that's not the most consistent attack. You know, it's probably going to happen more often than not in most larger fights, and even like mid to smaller ones. It's definitely a good possibility, especially if you're actively like trying to go for it. Um, but I don't know that that's like amazing. You know, it still just doesn't feel like enough. Like it should. I feel like he should have more of something. Maybe that's where they come in with the Battle Frenzy, trying to like increase his value. But I mean, it's definitely up to you. I like Grim Raiders a lot, and I do like that ability that they have. So that's definitely not a bad choice. As far as that being your main hero, though, like that one's obviously up to you. Scimitar here, which in my mind makes me want to go Minotaur, you know, but he is not the Minotaur hero. Um, Basic destructive with the irresistible, then also has some other things with him, which we will get to that. So no other abilities with the destructive or anything like that. So he has two specializations, which one of them we see here, going all damaging spells cast by hero do 50% more damage, but the mana cost is doubled. So obviously it's super nice that you're going to be doing more damage, but how much you're going to be able to cast is definitely going to be super small. Empowered spells mana cost is reduced by 5%, plus additional level 1% per hero. So this is definitely going to help that, help reduce the amount of mana it costs for him to cast, but it's definitely going to take time. I think, again, he's definitely, obviously all dungeon heroes are, you know, dungeon is a very magic heavy team, just in general, because they start with it and that's like their main thing. So Scimitar can definitely be insanely devastating. We've seen that in the dual mode series, which again, go watch if you are still here. Go watch the dual mode series. A lot of this is helpful. Obviously, not all of these heroes are in there, but Scimitar was one of those guys that if the AI would have actually cast more and cast correct things like, you know, implosion and all that stuff, he was wiping people out. But they did not do that enough to make him good in the dual mode series. But in normal mode, you know, I think he is definitely a solid choice. I think you're really just going to have to watch your mana and your casting. I think you're going to have to rely a little bit more on your creatures because he's going to run out of mana for sure. But I do think that with this catalyst and you being able to, it's going to get better, obviously, the more he levels up. So I think Scimitar is definitely a very strong choice. Again, if you're very into magic heavy, he's going to absolutely destroy people, but it's going to cost you to be able to do that. But personally, I would say that's probably worth the cost. And then Kythra is the Minotaur here. So we have seen, obviously, in any faction, there are heroes that are specific to a creature. Starting off with some leadership and some gold. So that's nice, getting some extra gold to your team every single day, plus some morale. So definitely not too bad. But Minotaurs, again, all of it is the same for every single faction hero with the creature, just +1 to their attack and defense per every 2 levels of the hero. So again, Minotaurs are decent tier 3s. I mean, they're not amazing, but they're not bad either, especially depending on which one you choose. But increasing their attack and defense is definitely super nice. Dungeon obviously is very magic heavy, very reliant on their heroes. Only a few of their creatures are actually pretty solid, and even so, they're at best about like middle of the pack for most of them. You know, Minotaurs being one of them. Like if you think of other tier 3 creatures that I would say are better, I would say squires are pretty much the exact same as they are. Ghosts to me are better. Hunters are probably one of the best creatures in the game, let alone the best tier 3. Warriors from Stronghold are pretty much the same as well. Golems are pretty similar, you know, they got some similar things, but they're not like above people like you know, hunters or ghosts are, in my opinion. Bear Riders are decent as well. Cerberus is okay. So, but Minotaur Hero there, definitely not a bad start. I've always somewhat liked having creature heroes because it just makes that creature that better, and you usually start pretty solid. Much like here with the scout hero, you know, you're going to start with about 20 something scouts here. That's not a bad start to have, you know, start strong and then do your best to finish strong here. So we got some luck and soldier's luck, which, you know, special attacks triggering more often, which is what he starts with. But then we see here, it's the same thing. Scouts, assassins start with, or get +1 to their attack and defense for every 2 levels. So again, I would say this is probably a better start than the Minotaur here, especially with the luck. But, you know, I would say also that Scouts and Assassins are on the lower end of tier 1s as far as how good they are. Maybe not lower, but there's still some better tier 1s, no matter which way you look at it, in my opinion, than Scouts. Not bad, not bad. Definitely a good start here. And then the last hero is the Blood Maiden hero here. Blood Maidens are definitely a very strong creature in the entire game for sure. Basic Enlightenment with Intelligence, so getting primary stats, and experience is super nice. And then what do we see here with, whoops, okay, we're just gonna go like that. And then, so that's very nice too. So she's actually pretty good at casting, just because she has way more mana than most people. And then also having Blood Maidens, you know, +1 to their attack and defense every 2 levels is super nice as well. So you're gonna have a very strong tier 2 creature, only getting stronger as the game goes on, and you're going to have way more mana in general, more than likely, than most heroes in the game at any given point. So your Wanna here is very, very strong pick for sure. I'm not a huge fan of Enlightenment, but it is good. It does have its usefulness, especially much like we see with the Intelligence. But yeah, if you're wanting to run a magic heavy team, most often, pretty much all dungeon heroes are the choice for you. A lot of them are. So hopefully this video helps you choose who you might want on your team, or even who's some, you know, nice backup heroes, you know, second, third, maybe even fourth heroes to have running around for your dungeon team, or just to choose in general. So again, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next one with all the other factions and still creatures as well. We do have all of the creatures still to go over, which you can, I'll give you a sneak peek here before I end the video of all the ones we got to go over. So we will hopefully see you guys there.